Welcome to Critter Crusades, the show about ordinary people on extraordinary missions to help animals. I'm Missy Woodward. Today we have fabulous guests. They've done something amazing by taking their talents and abilities and going out into the world of disaster animal rescue. I'd like to welcome today Amanda and Marty St. John. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us, Missy. We're so thrilled to be here.
Yes, well, you have Mutt Shack Animal Rescue that you've created, which has done so many amazing things in the New Orleans Katrina disaster. I know you do so much with certification and training of people for disasters. And living in Southern California, that's something we think about subliminally, I guess, if nothing else. But then every season, let's see, we've got fire season, earthquake season, flood season, which unfortunately, happens every year. How did your organization start? I think it started from love, but tell me a little bit more. Maybe I should ask Marty.
Well, you see a need and you respond to it like anything else. We started our organization actually officially on Amanda's birthday. The foundation was a gift to her to support her animal rescue work. And so we had to come up with an organization from scratch. And we had to decide between some fancy acronym and a name that people could remember. So we settled for the latter and called it Mutt Shack Animal Rescue.
Were you shocked when you got this birthday present?
It was fabulous. It was permission for me to go out and do these wonderful things. And we came up with the name Mutt Shack, putting mutts into shacks, because our first order of business was rescuing animals from shelters and finding homes for them, which, pseudonyms shacks, with it's a little a blanket in the corner of a room. But the whole paradigm of mutt shacking is there's not enough shelters to hold all the homeless animals.
Mm-hmm.
There'll never be enough shelters. So our idea is you'll go into a shelter, get an animal on his last day of life, bring him out, find him a home, get him healthy, get him sociable, because nobody wants to go into the shelters. People just avoid going there. That's why they'd rather go out and buy a dog than go into a shelter. It's just not a happy place to be, because you have to say no to so many dogs. It's not the one that you rescue, but the one that you have to say no to. It's really hard. And the dog changes completely once he's out of the shelter. And so that was it. The mutt shacking, the paradigm is go out, get a dog, get him adopted, go out, get another one, get him adopted, go get a cat, get him adopted, get a rabbit. And that way, if everybody just went out there and got one animal, we'd almost empty out the shelters right away.
Right. Now, I know that you had an inspiration. Was that, was it Piper? Your first dog, or a dog that...
Oh, Tippy.
Tippy, that was it. I couldn't remember. I had the name down wrong.
No, Tippy was a pit bull, and he looked like the pit bull in the Little Rascals, with the one black eye. And, we were just inseparable. He watched my back, and, I had his, and it was really my foray into understanding that bond. As a kid, dogs are just fun to play with, and then they grow up, and maybe they're not, but you learn to appreciate that bond, and that's really what this is about. It's not just about the animals. So people that don't even give thoughts to animals, you've got to look at the way they affect people and the bond that they share with them.
Now, what was your relationship with animals as a child and growing up?
Oh, growing up, I grew up in Africa, and most of my parents, my uncles, my grandfather, they all had wildlife sanctuaries.
Oh, wonderful.
So I remember my fondest memories was like at night, because there's no fire department. So when a fire would come through, and it's a short scrub, it would be low-level fire, and it would move really fast. And so we'd have this hue and cry. Everybody calls everybody they know, and we all show up at the farm, and we all have these Hessian bags. We'd dip them into water, and we'd go out and we'd start battling the fire hand on hand, because, as I said, they're low-lying, and so we have all my uncles and my cousins and my nephews and nieces and friends, and then at the end of it, we'd all be pitch black with just these little white eyes, and we'd sit drinking coffee out of cans, and we just learned to protect animals. That's just what we're supposed to do, and it was just part of growing up.
It was that communal aspect that you're talking about seems very much like what your programs are with Mutt Shack, that you're able to get people together. I know one of the things I find interesting is that you are actually really preparing people for all the types of disasters that are out there, from hurricanes, floods, fires, earthquakes. Is there a difference in the type of preparedness someone needs to have for these different types of disasters? And in your training, do you focus that way?
You want me to take that?
Yeah.
We really talk about just preparedness in general, to be aware that when an event happens, based on your area, you're going to have to respond. So what's typical, for your area? If you're in the Gulf, obviously it's a hurricane. If you're in the Midwest, it's a tornado or a flood. If you're on the West Coast, it's an earthquake. But the training that we also are a part of is to understand how to operate within the emergency response system, because there is a system in place. And often when we think of government as being inefficient and maybe not working. But in terms of disaster response, most communities have their act together. It's just that they generally don't have a component for animals. They sort of forget about that. Now, the Pets Act that was passed by Senator Fontenot in Louisiana sort of kicked this off. It later became a federal law, which everyone's probably more familiar with. But that sort of drew attention more to the bond between human and animal, so that we sort of turned the spotlight on the fact that if you try to ignore the animal issue, you're going to get stuck with people staying behind, and when they do, we know what happens.
Which is Katrina.
Exactly. So our training kind of focuses on how to prepare people to work within that disaster response system and get the resources they need and get the help that they need and to be able to know how to respond.
So you have a program with FEMA now currently, or how do you work?
We have a program that is actually based on the FEMA classes, the Incident Command System classes. So our program comprises 6 courses. They are actually, you can use them for college credits as well. They're three credit courses. You do them online and free. They're free online, free obviously through FEMA. When you complete your exam at the end of your course, FEMA will send you a certificate, and we will get transcripts and then compile them up and give you your basic or medium or advanced training. And it really is excellent training, just knowing how the government system works when a disaster happens. Then in terms of different places, in Louisiana, we know when a hurricane is coming with all these fabulous weather reports, and people really know it. We have 2-3 days and countdown. So when we come in, we'll come in with, we have the contract with the state of Louisiana to help transport the pets. So we will come in with 100 or so trucks, reefer trucks, temperature-controlled trucks, and we'll load up the animals. When people evacuate, they will get on the buses, the animals get loaded onto the trucks, and we'll all get out of there fast.
Now, how do you find people that are going to volunteer with you to do this and are trained?
That's a good question, Missy, because when there's a disaster, people show up. It's not difficult to get volunteers when something happens. And I think part of what's important is that the media plays such a huge role in this.
Absolutely.
Press drives people to places, to events, to causes. It's just the way it works. So yeah, it's not an easy thing. But fortunately, you keep track of who's good, who's done what, and the logical next step is, well, who do you know? So we recruit a lot of volunteers out of our volunteer base. And the fact that we provide training, not just to Mutt Shack volunteers, but to volunteers who might go off and join other organizations or already a part of other organizations. The whole point is that without that training now, you will not be able to get into a disaster area to help as much as you may want to.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
so this is a way to legitimize your participation. If somebody wants to be involved, let's say somebody specializes in cats or horses or whatever.
Right.
You can get in touch with, like they can maybe, are you sort of like a central command for some of these? Like when a disaster happens, do people then go to your website or find out what they can do next? How does somebody get involved after they have the certification?
Once there's a disaster, there'll be a declaration, a state declaration, or there are different organizations that are the lead agencies. So that's why I'm saying everybody needs to get involved in their own home front. So in Washington, they need to get involved with their local animal services, whoever has the command for the area. Mostly the animal services would be whoever's the animal control agency, or there may be a local state animal response team, SART, So, and every state is different, and it drives you nuts, but you have to just go in and find out where you would be connected in and get yourself plugged in, get yourself trained and get yourself plugged into your community, and not just with the animal stuff. Go and do first aid, go and do a little first aid, because what you do is you collect all your little certificates of all these great things you do, and the military calls it the brag book, and they brag. And you go into a disaster zone, you sign up, here's my certifications, and they go, okay, we'll deploy you right there, and off you go.
Wonderful.
So there's a lead agency in every disaster for animals.
So let's say, do you work with CERT and the fire department and the police department and everything, as far as, do you have to get any sort of pass, as it were, to be able to come in to help the animals if it's something that there's more fire related, or how does that work?
Absolutely.
Generally, again, we respect the organization that's in command.
Okay.
In Los Angeles, it's LA Animal Services. We would operate under a memorandum of understanding with them to allow us to then get the resources that they need. But that relationship then creates a command system, or allows us to create a system where we can now get the resources and get the reimbursements if necessary, if it's a state disaster or a federal disaster, to pay for it, because that's a big factor.
Right, because of the housing. What do you do with all the animals in the housing process? I know in Los Angeles, Pierce College would take horses, for instance. I don't know how it works with the dogs and the cats. I mean, do you have a foster system set up? How is it set up?
In Louisiana, we've actually gotten to the point where we have emergency shelters that are going to be put side by side with the people shelters. So they have now planned and plotted, and they really have done a wonderful job. They've been working on this solidly for 3 years. And so when the people show up with their animals get put on the trucks, the people get on the buses, they follow each other, they go to the shelter, and the people take care of the animals during the day. So you don't have to have the infrastructure, but you do need a team that knows, you know, how to handle. That's another great training. You can go and volunteer at your local shelter and learn how to handle animals, how the systems work, how you check in an animal, how you get his registration done. And then just on a local level, if we have a disaster here and there isn't a facility, well, we can come in and get an instant emergency animal shelter set up.
Okay.
Because in this instance, we won't be worried about a hurricane coming through. We can actually set up a shelter, and that's where we work with. We'll find out where a gap is and fill it in.
It's amazing. Well, we have a wonderful video we'd like to play that you have that is about Mutt Shack and what you did at Katrina. So why don't we go ahead and watch that, and people can understand a little bit more about the amazing work that you've both done. So we'll go ahead and watch that.
Thank you.
As much as we love being here at the Lake Castle School, schools are for children, not for animal rescue. If you haven't heard the Mutt Shack story, you probably should. It's on our website, www.MuttShack.org. Just following Katrina, the gym that you see here was actually used as a very large kennel. At any one time, we had anywhere from 50 to 200 dogs right in this very, very spot. They were all in crates, and we had volunteers looking after each and every one of them, walking them 3 or 4 times a day. In fact, they probably got more walks than they ever did in their lives. They had vet care, lots of good food, lots of clean, fresh water, and 24-hour care. We did our best to save as many as possible. All told, about 3,000 animals were saved from East New Orleans, the Ninth Ward, and other areas in the city. What we're doing now is fulfilling a promise. We made a promise to Louisiana and to New Orleans that we would never allow this to happen again. Anyone who was here following Katrina saw the devastation. They saw it was the largest animal holocaust in history. Anyone who was here would never want to repeat that again. And so we made a promise that we would evacuate the animals in times of storm. We now have in position over 70 refrigerated, temperature-controlled vehicles that will move along with the buses. You'll see some of what we're working with. But the buses that transport people will travel side by side with evacuation vehicles specifically for animals. And those animals will go along with those buses to shelters set up so that the people can be side by side with their animals. not the way it was after Katrina. This time they'll be able to be very, very close to their animals, interact with them, walk them. In fact, they have a responsibility to take some of the burden off of the volunteers and care for their animals. What we need desperately is for people to understand the scope of this and to understand that we need vehicles, we need donations desperately to be able to pre-stage those vehicles in the state of Louisiana strategically, so that when a storm comes in, often without a lot of warning, we have to be prepared to deploy those vehicles and deploy those volunteers. And so if those trailers are standing close to those evacuation points, it cuts down the time frame and puts us in a position where we could do the most effective job at evacuation. We've held several training exercises. We've worked with the parishes to develop plans so that they can move as quickly as possible and they can get things done. And we need the funding in order to prepare for the storm. See, the evacuation bill passed by Senator Clo Fontenot was designed to respond in the instance of a declaration of disaster, which the governor makes. But there was never any allocation of funds for pre-storm funding, or what they call the surge fund. So all of what we're doing now, all of this preparation is out of our pocket. We've gone tremendously in debt. Frankly, we wouldn't do it any other way because we made a commitment, we made a promise, but we do need your help. One of the things that was amazing is that when there are disasters, people tend to come out of the woodwork and want to help and want to do whatever they can to make sure that that help is there. And whether it's food, whether it's clothes, whether it's donations, whether it's phone call made or laundry washed or cages cleaned, all of that means something. But the tendency is to think that everything here is just fine. It isn't. It isn't. And just because we're not in the news every single day doesn't mean that there still isn't a need here. And the need now really is for everyone to take some responsibility, to be a part of this, because it's a huge burden, really, really it is. And what we need is for everyone out there to step up and really come onto our team and help us put this together. Help us get the resources, the supplies, and the funding that we need to make sure that what happened after Katrina never happens again. We made a promise to the state of Louisiana that we would help them evacuate all of their animals in the time of a tropical storm or hurricane. We're going to keep that promise, but we need your help.
So amazing, the work that you both did, and it was thousands of animals you were involved with. How many weeks were you there?
We haven't left actually. The actual evacuation in the city of New Orleans, we were there about 3 months. Over 3,000 animals were rescued. A lot of owners came to the shelter. We had took over a school, and a lot of owners came to the shelter to find their dogs, and
cats.
And cats. Oh, and ducks and snakes and ferrets and all kinds of creatures. But the big thing is identification of animals. And that one just, if they had microchips in them, they got home right away. Because in the beginning we couldn't contact the people, we'd call them and they weren't home.
Right.
But at least we knew who they were, and when phones started going again, they got back home. And it's so important to identify, and you know, the microchips have just been a revolution. It was revolutionary. Of the horses now, horses have by law in the state of Louisiana got to be microchipped. Well, 98, 99% of the horses were all returned.
Right. That's what I understood. And that, and also another point, I understood the pit bull fighting was one of the biggest underground industries there, and that somebody else I interviewed that had been at Katrina for many months said the majority of the animals, you saw a lot of pit bulls were just let go, that were fighting dogs were just released. Has there been a resurgence?
We have such a story about that.
Has there been a resurgence of this, or the fighting, or the animals? Has that industry gone now?
Well, we hope it's, I think it's probably underground more than gone. But when we were at Mutt Shack, we had, as you said, all these pit bulls, and aggressive towards other dogs, but not to people. And we had a shelter full of dogs, and we had the pit bull fighter show up saying they wanted to get their dogs, and we'd ask them to fill in a description, show us what does your dog look like, and so, well, it's a male, or maybe it's a female, it's a black, maybe it's they couldn't, and they were shopping to find, because this area that we were in, East New Orleans, was the greatest pit bull fighting, the most famous dogs in the world, pit bull fighting dogs in the world in this area. And so they came in and they threatened to come and burn us down while we were there. And fortunately, right across from us was the military camp. And they stationed, so at night we'd actually have to, at first we were just in a parking lot, so we'd have to like pull the cars around the dogs at night. But then later when we moved to the school, we'd have to like shut down the doors and park the vehicles in front so nobody could get into the shelters at night.
And then, who did anything about the threat?
And fortunately, the military who was there came, and they were there in their little Humvees with their little glasses at night, and they protected us. We cannot have done this without the military who were there.
Amazing. And what has happened to those, especially the fighting dogs or the ones that were so aggressive? How were you able to place them or find proper homes for them?
Most of them went up to Tylertown through the HSUS and Best Friends organizations, and they placed them on Pet Finder and so on to find the appropriate homes for them. And you know, we had some amazing stories. The longest survivor was a German Shepherd, and she was there 71 days.
71 days.
71 days. She was 3 months when they left. She was 6 months when we found her.
Wow. And what about all the sad shots that we saw of animals chained to their posts at their homes? People had some mentality about chaining animals and not having, you know, they were left to die. Did any of that, did that make an impact anywhere on the city as far as you cannot have animals tethered? Or I know, you know, there's tethering issues in so many states. How did that affect?
There is a great organization, the Humane Society of Louisiana, and they have tried to put in new laws, and they're doing an incredible amount of education about that kind of thing. But the big thing is preparedness. You know, know where your animal's going to be during a disaster. You know, and you know, we talk about earthquakes and stuff, but even like 4th of July, that is the biggest. Disaster in the biggest disaster day of the year, because so many animals they'll go through a glass window to try and get away from the noise.
This year I went out to talk to my neighbor who were trying to stop fireworks, and a pit bull was just ran right into my legs, begged me, and I had to take him to the shelter to house him because everything around me was exploding. Fortunately, the owners came, but 3 days after it was up for adoption, they weren't even looking for the dog, really.
Oh.
And then the volunteers said that, you know, they weren't even nice to the dog. So, you know, it's a very sad situation that people are so unaware that 4th of July that's the one day most people I know will stay at home, shut everything down, turn on the sounds. It's a terrifying day.
And so we have disasters all the time, and it's just planning and being aware, and where's your animal going to be? Is it going to be in a facility? Are you going to have them in a crate? If you pack up to go in an earthquake, if you have to evacuate the area, that if it becomes untenable, you have to move, do you have a crate ready to take him? You know, where is he going to stay? Do you have food? Do you have his vaccinations? Does he have a microchip so we can get him back to you?
Right, and also letting people out of state know your numbers, having that on your microchip or other identification, all that information. Now, your volunteers must be the most amazing group of people.
They are.
And how do you keep them, and are they just constantly growing and coming to you because of what they see about the work that you do?
You know, Missy, we'd love to take responsibility for everything that's been done, but, you know, we can't. I mean, we have had I can't even say pleasure, just the honor to work with some of the most amazing, dedicated people who you would not be able to afford if you had to pay them. You wouldn't be able to, because they are so dedicated. Some of these people took out second mortgages on their homes, as we did. Did things like, you know, leave their jobs. Supposedly for a week, it turned into 2 weeks, which turned into 3, which turned into a month. And so these
at their
people,
own personal risk, too.
At their own personal risk
with disease and everything
expense.
that they didn't know, right?
Right. So really, it's about responsibility initially, seeing a need, and filling that need, but also from the standpoint of understanding what skills you need to do it. It's one thing to show up and want to help, but it's also important to have the training.
What, if there are positions that are available for volunteers, what are the things that you always need somebody? So if somebody's watching this show, they say, I've got that talent or ability, I can help them out. What kind of areas do you need help in, volunteer-wise?
Well, first of all, everybody has to connect in their local community. Connect in the local community, connect at your local level, and then join us. And then we will give you the training to head up a satellite division. We have a great division in Washington, and they do great things. They just opened up a dog park. In New York, we have a great group. Up in New Orleans, and now we're looking at Florida. But wherever you are, you can start a satellite organization for Mutt Shack.
Okay, so they would go to MuttShack.org to find that?
MuttShack.org. And the training is on there as well. You know, you can start your training, and always need volunteers just to network in their own communities.
All right, in these last few seconds that we have, what is your goal for the animals right now?
Our goal is to have people in every single community who understand what it takes to do rescue, what it takes to be prepared, and can help their community plan and help their community prepare and do what it is that they do best. I mean, that might mean being on a computer sending out emails or doing accounting. Yeah. You know, you have to think in terms of what is it that you do best that you bring to the table, and everybody does what we can, like John Lennon said, right?
Right. Thank you both so much for coming on board, and thank you for what you've done in this creation that came out of your love for her love of animals, your both love of animals, and what you've done to educate the masses and who you've touched, because I know you've touched me, and I know by people watching this, they can see that they too can make a big difference, huge difference, even doing something they normally do every day. And that's what I think it's so great when people are crusaders for the animals. Thanks so much for joining us here today on Critter Crusades, the show about ordinary people on extraordinary missions to help animals. Go out and make a difference. And remember, don't litter, spay and neuter. Thanks.